Of you are welcome to BIS 605, Ethical and Social Aspects of Information Systems. And I want to begin the lecture with a very important question. And the question is, do you think technology can ever be neutral? You don't need to answer this. I want you to just think around it. Whether the technologies we deal with, can they ever be neutral? Can it ever be neutral? I'm asking this question because many people think information systems are purely technical tools. Many people think information systems are purely technical tools. But the reality is that every information system affects people, it affects institutions, power, opportunity, privacy, and even our democracies. And we are all witnesses to how technology was used to influence US elections. So even democracies, information systems can affect or influence that. So throughout this course, we are not just going to be studying technology, we are going to be studying human consequences of technology. And so this lecture is introducing you to the ethical and social dimensions of information systems. And then it will give you the theoretical foundation you would use throughout the trimester and even in your professional lives. So this course or this lecture one, is an introduction to the social and ethical issues. And then we'll be looking at the ethical theories and then and frameworks. So I would start off by, first of all, emphasizing the fact that this lecture is going to be in two parts. Part one will look at the introduction to social and ethical issues in IS, and then part two will look at the ethical theories and frameworks. Now, in the first part, our focus would be on why the social and ethical issues matter. Why do they matter? And then how technology is shaping our society. In the second part, we will look at the three major theoretical frameworks. So we will look at three major theories. We will look at the utilitarianism, we will look at deontology, and then we'll look at virtual ethics. And we'll try to see how we can simplify this to guide us. Then we would use a case study to try and practicalize the concepts in the end. Now, another question I want to ask you is, have you ever used an app or a digital service and later you are left wondering? You are wondering in terms of how much of your data they have collected, how much of your data has been collected when you are using the technology. That concern in itself is an ethical issue in information systems, because if your use of the app is going to lead to the collection of your data, the question is, did you consent? And if you didn't consent, it raises a number of ethical issues. And these are the issues we are going to be discussing. So I am very hopeful that by the end of today's lecture, you should be able to define ethical and social issues in information systems. You should be able to define that. You should also be able to distinguish between law, morality, and ethics, and why the concept of law, morality, and ethics are important in information systems. Now, we will also be interested in how we apply these things to technology situations in our local context or even globally. Now, I just don't want us in this lecture to try to be memorizing definitions. What I want us to do is I want you to be able to analyze a real decision involving AI, or a real issue involving privacy, or analyze a real issue involving surveillance, or analyze a real issue involving a digital platform. And so I'll try to make the concepts very very easy to understand. So, just to give you more depth in terms of this course again, the course explores how information systems affect individuals. And I have indicated that we will discuss it at different levels. I have also discussed how you are going to be graded in terms of the percentages, and that is what is indicated here. So I will not spend so much time on that. I will hit the ground running by introducing or reminding you of something we have done your first trimester, the concept of information systems. So before we can discuss ethics, we all need to understand what an information system actually is. You are doing MBA, MIS, and you must know what an information system is. It is very important. So an information system basically consists of these 5 components. It combines people, it combines hardware, it combines software, data, and what? And now, there's a key insight here. If you look at every one of the components, they create ethical choices. For example, if you look at the first component, which is people, the question is, when there's a system, who gets access to the system? And then when you also look at the issue of data, you ask, what kind of data should be collected for a particular system? How long should the data be stored? And who even makes the decisions based on the data? All of these are ethical issues that are raised along the continuum in terms of how these 5 information system elements are related. So for each of these 5 elements or components that constitute what an information system is, we are saying that each of them raises an ethical or what? A social issue. Now, we need to be able to distinguish clearly what is a social issue and what is an ethical issue. The distinction is very important. It's very, very important. So when we are talking about social issues, our focus is on how the technology is affecting groups of people, how it is affecting communities, how it is affecting institutions, and how it is affecting the society as a whole. Okay? And then when we are talking about ethical issues, our concern is about what is right. Our concern is about what is wrong, what we may need to do, and what duties we owe to others. That's what ethics is about. So there are 2 different things. While social issues may concern issues regarding digital inequality, so digital inequality is a social issue. If technology is introduced and people lose their jobs, job displacement, that is a social issue. If you post something on social media and it misinforms people, that is a social issue. You get that? But when we are talking about ethical issues, we are concerned with the issues about right and wrong. And we often, when we're dealing with ethical issues, we often ask questions like, is this fair? Is this respectful? Are my rights being violated? Did you get my consent? Or even, is the consent genuine? All these are ethical issues. And so it is very important that we are able to distinguish what is social and what is what is ethical. But for us in information systems, we have to understand that most information systems issues are a combination of the 2. They involve both ethical and what? And social issues. And that is why we are combining them to discuss them in this lecture. So for instance, if you are in information systems and there's a facial recognition software, a software that is able to recognize people by looking at the patterns on their faces, then a number of issues are involved. Social issues are there because people are being surveilled. There's surveillance issue there. Also an ethical issue because people are being filmed or people are being recorded, and it raises the issue about what? Whether they consent to that and it also raises issues about what? About privacy. So my emphasis is that when we are dealing with information systems, we are interested in both what? The social and the ethical issues. And to reiterate the difference between the two, we are saying that when we are dealing with social issues, it concerns how technology affects groups, communities, and institutions, and the society as a whole. But when we are dealing with ethical issues, it concerns what is right, it concerns what is wrong, what we ought to do, and what duties we owe to others. That is what ethics is about. So anytime questions about is this fair, is this right, we are dealing with ethical issues, right? We are dealing with ethical issues. Now, we also need to understand some three concepts which are very related in our understanding of the ethical and social issues. These three concepts are: one, law; the second one is morality; and the third one is ethics. These three concepts are very related, but they are not the same. And we need to understand the difference. So, for instance, law. When we say law, law basically refers to rules which are enforced by the state, not so uh, rules that are enforced by the state. And the laws always tell us what we must do. We don't have a choice. We must do it. So laws are rules set by the state, and they are backed by a lot of sanctions. So that if you break a rule, some sanctions will be meted out to you. Maybe we can say that laws may be just or unjust, but they are to be obeyed. And sometimes the law can change over time. Then we also have the issue of morality. Morality basically involves what our community values. What are our community values? Morality refers to the values which are largely shaped by our culture, it is shaped by our religion, and it is shaped by our family and then our broader society. So when we have shared beliefs about something which is right or wrong, then that is about what? About morality, right? Then the last one, which is what? Which is ethics. Ethics involve the issue about right and wrong, and it involves the reasoning about what ought to be done. Reason about what ought to be done. So there are three different things, and we are saying that it is important that we understand the distinction between these three, because as professionals we must think in a way that communicates that we know the difference between what is law, what is morality, and then what is ethics. So to put our introduction to social and ethical issues into perspective, I ask a question again. How is technology reshaping our society? And in our previous lectures, I have given several examples of how technology is reshaping our society. So for a typical example, these days, if someone is going to have a wedding, they don't buy toffees, or they don't send coolers to people. They just put it on a WhatsApp status, or they share it in WhatsApp groups. This is a typical example of how technology has shaped our society. Now, there are several different examples in terms of how technology is reshaping our society. The first one, privacy and surveillance. Privacy and surveillance. Today, almost every digital interaction we are engaged in, it is generating data. It is generating data. And that raises a number of issues. The data is generated. It is generating our engagement with technology. Who is collecting it? What are they doing with it? So it means that every time we are using technology, we are being surveilled. There's surveillance on us. Data is being captured. Our privacy is being violated. Then there's also the issue of algorithmic decisions. Almost all of us know and have interacted with AI systems. It is important to note that AI systems are increasingly determining a lot of things in our society. So, for instance, if you want to apply for MTN quick loan, it is an AI that will determine whether you will get the loan or not. The AI determines within the split of a second. These days, the jobs we apply to, AI does a lot of shortlisting. Even scholarship applications, when thousands and thousands of people apply for scholarship, they no longer take it through manual screening. They just submit the applications to an AI, and the AI will screen it. Then, so algorithmic decisions these days in a lot of the things we do is reshaping our society. That is why it is important that you don't put just anything on your social media page or handle. Because if you apply for something and an AI is going to screen it, it will go through all of these profiles, and maybe because of something you have shared, it may screen you out. Now, we also have the issue of digital divide. We all don't have equal access to digital tools. And so access to digital tools, because of our differential access to digital tools, our economic participation is also differentiated. Because of my access to certain technologies, the things I am able to do is different from what someone else may be able to do because of his lack access to certain kind of what? Of technologies. Then we also have the issue of misinformation. Misinformation. Platforms often these days prioritize engagement, how people are engaging with something other than the truth. So if I put a false video of someone online, people are going to engage with it and it may go viral, but it may not be the truth. And the platform would have amplified the content to get more attention, and a lot of people will be misinformed. Technology today, too, is replacing a lot of jobs. A lot of things people used to do at workplaces, technology is replacing them because of the issue of automation. So that is also one way technology is reshaping our society. And last but not the least, intellectual property. In during your first trimester, we looked at the concept of digital goods, and we said that digital goods, the cost of production of digital goods, the cost of production of an additional digital goods is zero. We also said that the cost of a digital good is just the initial cost is the entire cost, and if you are going to reproduce it, is the reproduction cost is marginal cost is zero. So because of that, it is easy for digital goods to be copied, like a music track. It's easy, like an e-book. It's very easy to copy. And because of that, it raises a lot of intellectual property issues. Now that we understand basically what we mean by ethical and social issues, the difference between social and ethical issues, the difference between law, morality, and ethics, and also how technology is reshaping society. We have looked at 6 different ways that technology is doing what? Is reshaping our society. And it is doing that through privacy and surveillance, algorithmic decisions, digital divide, work and automation, misinformation, and then intellectual property. Now, the question I want to pose is, why then do we need ethical theories? We need ethical theories because our intuition alone is not enough. It's not enough. Because you see, different people can feel differently about the same issue. The issue you may consider to be right, I may consider it to be what? To be wrong. So ethical theories will provide us with a very structured way for all of us to reason. So they provide us a structured way to reason. And they can help us to explain and justify our decisions rather than simply relying on personal opinion. So the ethical theories are supposed to guide us in terms of the ethical decisions we make, right? So basically, theories gives us a shared language to debate and disagree, right? They also force us to make our reasoning clear so that people will know that, oh, this guy is very objective and not emotional, right? So we are going to look at some of the ethical theories. The first ethical theory I want us to look at is utilitarianism, and it is from the word utility. Utility. Utilitarianism asks a very simple question. Very simple question. Which action produces the greatest overall good? So whatever you are going to do, you may ask the question, which action, if I do this, will I get the greatest benefit? So here, our focus in terms of this theory in making decisions is about consequence. If I do this, what is the consequence? Will it bring me a greater good? If yes, then you do that. So we say that the core idea behind utilitarianism is that an action is right if its consequences produce the greatest overall well-being for everyone affected. So when we are dealing with utilitarianism, we always try to weigh the benefits and the what? And the harm. And then we maximize the net good. If the benefits outweigh, then we do it. If the benefits are less, then we say that no. Based on the utility principle, we will not do it. Now, how can we apply the utilitarianism theory? So let me just go back a bit. In terms of utilitarianism, we are saying that an action is considered ethical. An action is considered ethical if it minimizes the overall good or the overall happiness or of the overall well-being. For example, if I ask a question like, should a hospital share anonymized patient data for medical research? When I say anonymize, the patient data will not include their names. Can they share that? Now, a utilitarian would weigh the potential lives sharing the data would save against the privacy issue. You see that? So if it is going to save many lives, then they will say that privacy is not really an issue. Let's share it because it will save lives. Now, there's a challenge with utilitarianism. Sometimes it can justify harming minorities. If we say that an action is right, if the consequences it produces the greatest overall well-being for majority of the population, what about the minority? So oftentimes, utilitarianism, it is justifying harming minority groups because we always will feel that majority carries the day and the majority will benefit. And so it is ethical for us to do that. But the question we should also be asking is, should majority benefit always outweigh individual rights? Yeah, if you are based on utilitarianism, that is the way to go. And so, as professionals, if you are confronted with an issue and you want to apply the utilitarianism principle, your focus would be to look at the greater good. And how do you do that? How do you apply the utilitarian principle? You first of all have to list everyone affected by the action. So if you are the CEO of an organization and a new technology is coming, and this new technology will affect a lot of jobs. You have to list everyone affected by the job, by the introduction of the technology. And then you estimate the benefits and the harms for each. So if you have 20 employees and then 5 are going to lose their jobs, estimate the benefit and harms for each. The 15 who are going to benefit, the 5 who are going to lose their jobs. And then you choose the option with the largest net benefit. So the largest net benefit will be that, look, at least 15 people will benefit. And that far outweighs those who are going to lose their jobs. But what can you do to minimize the minority that is going to be affected? This is a utilitarian principle. Sometimes, if you are applying the utility principle or utilitarianism principle theory, people will tell you that you are very selfish because you are always looking out for your own interest, the greatest good. And people say you are selfish. Now, the next thing I want us to look at is the deontology. Deontology basically focuses on duties and the rights and not consequences. Remember, we just said utilitarianism is based on consequences, the greatest good. But deontology is about rights, it's about duties, it's about rules. That's the focus. And this, according to one philosopher who uh, is behind this particular theory, Immanuel Kant, he says that people should never be treated merely as means to an end. It means that some actions are wrong, even if they produce good outcomes. So he is in opposition to the utilitarian principle. And he says that some actions may be what? May be wrong, even if they produce the greatest good. So, and a typical example is a company, assuming a company is hiding surveillance terms inside a lengthy user agreement. A company hiding surveillance terms inside lengthy user agreement, they may technically gain consent, but ethically. So sometimes when you are installing an app, you see the terms and agreements, or you want to sign a contract, the terms and agreements. A lot of things are there. You may not see it. And then because it's difficult for you to read, you go and sign. Yes. But if you sign yes, and you have not actually taken your time to look at the content. So technically you have agreed, but ethically the company or the organization or the software developer has failed because you have not been genuinely informed of what is contained in the document you are signing. And so for this particular theory, the question that is often asked is, this action you are going to take, is it respectful? This action you are going to take, will this be acceptable as a universal rule? Would everybody say that, oh, what you have done is right? So basically, what this one is doing is that it is protecting every human dignity and rights, everyone. So it is not about consequences, the greatest good, but it is about what? Duties. It is about rights rather than the who is going to benefit. Okay. So universality, very important. Could this be a rule for everyone? If it is not, if it cannot be a rule for everyone, then deontology will say that no, don't do it. We should respect. Does this particular action I'm going to take treat everyone very well, or is just a means to an end? So you see that the two are in opposition to each other. Let's look at the third one. The third one is virtue ethics, our theory three. And virtue ethics, it shifts the focus from actions to what? To what we call character. So instead of asking a question like, what should I do in a particular circumstance? This particular theory is saying that you should rather be asking, what kind of person should I become? So it is about character. And oftentimes we say that the things you do when you are not being watched. So it's about character. It's about your habits. It's about your good life. So this particular approach is emphasizing virtues, honesty, fairness, courage, courage, and then wisdom. So a typical example might be, imagine an engineer discovers a major security flaw before a product launch or maybe a car. This particular theory emphasizes that the engineer should have the courage to speak up, even when there is pressure to remain silent. So you can imagine, you are the engineer, a car, a computer, or something is going to be launched. Just about the launch, you realize that there's a significant problem. This particular virtue ethics theory is saying that you should be ready to do what? To speak up, even when there is pressure on you to do what? To remain silent. In a nutshell, this theory reminds us that ethics is also about what? Character, professional character. So, going back a little bit, the first one looks about utility, the greatest good. The second one looks about duties, rights, universality, and rules. And then the last one, we are looking about honesty, character, fairness, and practical wisdom. So in the last one, your focus should be no matter what, even if you are the only one standing against the organization, you should speak up. That is why sometimes we say that some people are what? They are very principled because no matter what, they will always speak their mind and they will speak the truth. Now, this table compares the three approaches, the three theories side by side. Utilitarianism focuses on what? Consequences. Deontology focuses on duties and rules. And then virtue ethics focuses on what? Character and integrity. Now, all of us are professionals. In our professional practice, we will rarely rely on one. We will even combine them depending on the nature of the situation. So different ethical lenses can actually show us different aspects of the same problem. So if there's a problem, I can use utilitarianism to look at it. I can also use deontology to look at it. And then I can also use virtue ethics to look at it. We are saying that all these theories guides us, or it will guide us as professionals to be able to do what? To take ethical decisions regarding the use of technology in our organizations. So, assuming you are confronted with an ethical issue, you are confronted with an issue, how do you deal with it as a professional, as a manager, as a teacher? You can use this framework to always guide you in terms of how you deal with an ethical or social issue in information systems. Always try to identify what the ethical issue is. So, number one, identify. Try to spot the ethical issue, the people involved, and the information system components that are at play. And you know the information system components. These are hardware, software, people, data, and procedures. When you know this, then the next thing is for you to try and understand, gather facts. You can put a committee together, you can call people individually and interact with them. Try to understand the relevant facts. Identify who and who is involved, the stakeholders. What are the laws? What are the procedures? What are the technical constraints before you can judge? So you identify, you gather the facts, and then the next thing you do is you now start generating your options. To generate your options, you need to be able to list realistic courses of action. Then you ask yourself, if I'm going to use utilitarianism, then this is everyone will majority will benefit. If I'm using deontology, I should be considering everyone in terms of rules universally. Is this acceptable? If I'm considering virtue ethics, what about me? What will people say about me if I say this? So you generate your options by listing the realistic courses of action, including doing nothing or going public. Those may be your options. And then four, test each option you are taking against each theory. Test it against utilitarianism, test it against deontology, and test it against the virtue lenses. And then you make your decision. You choose what you want to do. Now, when you choose what you want to do, try to document it, why you are doing what you are doing by providing your reason. Document it. And you should be ready to revise what your decision is if they give you facts or if the facts change. Maybe the time you were taking your decision, you were not privy to certain things. Now, someone has come up to tell you that, look, A, B, C also happened. It is not out of place for you to revise your decision and say that your decision is being revised and you are justifying it based on these new facts that are now available to you. So basically, what we are looking at here is to try and get that basic understanding of what IS ethics and IS social issues are, how we can deal with a practical issue of taking an ethical decisions when we are confronted with an information system, either implementation or use or whatever aspect of information systems we are dealing with. So there's a case study here that practicalizes this what we are looking at. And this is an excellent example and a real world information system dilemma. So I'll read it out. A Ghanaian telecommunications fraud detection algorithm has flagged 50,000 mobile money accounts as possibly compromised during the past night, and they have gone ahead to freeze all of them. So freezing them, they thought will stop suspected fraud immediately. That was their thinking. But most of those accounts that were flagged were likely innocent traders. They were innocent students, and they were innocent farmers. And all this group of people depend on their mobile money wallets for daily transactions. Now, the system is 92% accurate. What should the head of operations do? What should the head of operations do? So typically, in a situation like this, it raises a number of issues, ethical and social issues. So if you are taking the utilitarian lens, possibly, you would have to compare the total loss prevented by the suspected fraud against the total disruption you are causing to innocent users. You get that? So you compare the total loss prevented, that's a gain, against total disruption to innocent users. Which one will outweigh the other? And then you justify and take your action. The deontological lens would say that customers have a right to access their own funds, and you cannot block it. And to due process. So freezing without notice, without telling them or appealing to them is not good. That's the deontological lens. They are saying that you cannot do that. You cannot freeze it. You have to let them know before you can freeze it. Then the virtue lens says that a trustworthy organization should always act with both prudence and fairness. That perhaps they should have used a tiered response. They should have been careful. They should have notified the suspected users and maybe giving them some time before they can freeze their accounts. You get that? Whilst their staff are also working to see how they can resolve the issue. So you see that considering the different theoretical lenses, the approaches are what? Are different. And so as a manager, anytime you are confronted with an ethical issue, you have to try to see how you can apply these theoretical frameworks to do that. Now, in summary, what I have tried to do in this lecture is to emphasize that every information system decision has uh, ethical and social implications. Every IS, every information system choice has an ethical dimension. There's always a dilemma. Then we also looked at the issue of law, morality, and ethics. And we are saying that they are not the same. The third thing we looked at is the three lenses or the three theories. And we are saying that utilitarianism, deontological theory, and the virtue lenses each show that each of them show that the other theory is missing something. And you can use all theories to analyze one single scenario and take a decision. Then we also highlighted that ethical frameworks are supposed to guide us in reasoning. They are supposed to be seen as a framework to guide our reasoning. Our reasoning as professionals should not be based on our gut feeling. This is what you feel. You don't have any reason. You should always have a reason, which is explainable clearly to others. And then the last, but not the least, ethical thinking is a professional habit which all of us must cultivate. So ethical thinking is a habit, it's not an event. So if you want to be a good information system professional, you have to practice how to reason in an ethical manner so that ethics can become what? Second nature to whatever you do. And this brings us to the end of the lecture. We can now have an interaction if you have questions. Thank you.